It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were. Needed someone to understand my ups and
Merry
downs.
Christmas, everyone, and welcome to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett. Ho, ho, ho.
That's right. Merry Christmas. And through the wonderful technology of radio, we're recording on Wednesday, and we will be with families, on Christmas Day. What are your plans for Christmas?
Boy, I think our plans start Saturday morning and end sometime on Monday.
Okay.
With all the various family members, their spouses, their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their step-parents, their stepchildren. By the time all's said and done, we've got about 3 days of celebrating to do.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Good.
Nothing
Good.
wrong with that.
Well, folks, we're hoping that you are having a great weekend. We're so glad that you've tuned in and given us some of your time here today. We've got some great stories that we are tracking. The first story, there is a Christmas light controversy in a Montgomery neighborhood in Alabama with a homeowners association. And we're going to deal with that in just a little bit. Perhaps you saw last week, Minneapolis Star-Tribune had an article about the Minneapolis City Council revoked a license from one of the landlords.
All of his licenses.
Licenses, and they said that this person probably was the third largest owner of property that they've revoked licenses of to date.
Wow, ever.
Yes. And
Wow.
so we're going to be talking a little bit later on with a member of an organization called the Minneapolis Property Rights Action Committee. We're going to get his take on it. And then also a little bit later, too, in the city of Chicago, they are starting to come down hard on those who own foreclosed property. This would be the banks and mortgage companies. Mm-hmm. And FHFA, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, is saying, hey, foul, wait a minute. And we're going to be talking about that as well. But as always, it is now time for Property Management in the News. Property Management in the News, of course, is brought to you by Pest Control Services. When you need to get rid of unwanted pests in your home or rental property, call someone who's responsive, professional, and a proud member of Angie's List. Give owner Greg Keener a call at 952-894-9748. That's Pest Control Services. Well, to kind of set the stage for our first story, we have a news clip that came from WSFA Channel 12 News, an NBC affiliate from Montgomery, Alabama. Eric, go ahead and run the clip.
New at 10 o'clock tonight, one man's holiday celebration may be another man's holiday irritation. A homeowner in the Eastern Forest neighborhood of Montgomery is in the middle of a controversy over his large computer-driven Christmas light and sound display. Some neighbors love it, others don't like it at all. WSFA 12 News reporter Melissa McKinney has details on this holiday standoff.
To see a crowd in front of Thino Zagouvis' house.
We come out to see the lights every year. It's probably the best light show in town.
For 8 years, Zagouvis has wowed folks with 70,000 blinking lights. This Christmas, that number was cut in half.
The Homeowners Association decided that it was a nuisance, which I completely disagree with.
But other residents like Terry Phillips raised concerns about the amount of traffic the show brings to the neighborhood.
I've come home sometimes and it's taken me 30 to 45 minutes to get to my house.
Others worried it would be difficult for emergency vehicles to find homes because of it. Zagouvis downsized the show to appease the Homeowners Association, all the while making a point of his own with HOA signs and blow-up Grinch figures behind them.
They've blown it way out of proportion, I feel.
Each year, Mr. Zagouvis puts music to his light show, and all you have to do is turn up your radio and you can hear it. He says he does it to keep music from blaring out in the neighborhood. This year, it's the theme to the Grinch.
I have to take my stand just because it's Christmas lights.
I just think it's a shame that we got to revert to bashing the homeowners association.
Phillips says he isn't against the Christmas lights, but thinks the neighborhood drama has gotten out of hand. 13-year-old Caroline Mulligan stands behind the show.
I wrote a letter to Thino and just told him that I miss his lights and that I hope we can do next year.
He wrote back,
Dear Caroline, thank you so much for your kind, sweet note. I cannot tell you how happy I am that I do have such great support.
For now, the modified show goes on, despite this longtime Christmas spectacle's uncertain future. Melissa McKinney, WSFA 12 News, Montgomery.
By the way, the Homeowners Association's president declined to go on camera tonight, but says he feels it is unfair for the association to be labeled as Grinches, especially since the group has supported the show for many years.
Well, I tell you, there's nothing that says Merry Christmas and in keeping of the true spirit of Christmas like 70,000 pulsating lights that looks like a casino on the Vegas Strip.
And
Merry Christmas, yeah, baby.
calling your neighbors Grinch.
Oh, yeah, that goes a long way, doesn't it?
Oh, man. I don't know, Gene. This is. You know, when I read the story, it made me suspicious that this TV station went out and dug this up. And maybe started to do a story on the Christmas lights in Montgomery and found this guy and then talk about blowing it out of proportion. Made a big media event out of the fact.
Yes.
Exactly. Made a big media event out of the fact that his neighbors are getting fed up.
Yes. You know, it's interesting. I think there are all of the pieces that are put together in the reporting of this article that give you the true picture of what's going on. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, just the emphasis on the wrong syllable will make all the difference in all the in the world. You know, with what's going on, and that's what is taking place here. First of all, let's take a look at. It says for 8 years, Mr. Zaguvas has been putting on this display. The person who was reporting said, the board president said that they have supported it
for many years.
Yep. So you got to ask yourself the first question: if they've supported it for so many years, but now they aren't, why? Why would that be?
What has changed?
Yeah,
and it seems to be that what has changed is the thing has just grown and grown and grown year after year after year, and now it's reached a point where neighbors are truly concerned about it and truly disrupted by it.
I mean, obviously, if someone, there was that one neighbor who was contacted, and he said, hey, look, sometimes it takes me 30 to 45 minutes just to maneuver through and get to my home.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, would that be a bother?
I think so,
man.
And you wouldn't have to be in a homeowners association to have that be an issue. I mean, living in South Minneapolis, living in Bloomington, living in Eagan, if you're blocking the traffic in your street because people are gawking at your lawn display, I think your neighbors would have something to say about it.
Yes, and so I think what we have here is not a Grinch-like board of directors. No. What we have is probably a board of directors who have been listening to the input from a lot of homeowners in
members.
Their association, and they've said, "Hey, it's finally gotten too much. We've thought it was fine all these years, but this is too much." And so the board has an obligation to represent those homeowners and say, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to ask that you
and
stop."
You know, they didn't disallow it. They didn't pull the plug and say you can't do this display anymore. They just asked him to cut down from 70,000 lights to 35,000 lights. I mean, that seems to me to be a very measured response.
Yeah, I mean, talk about 1,000, 2,000 lights. Pretty soon, you're talking about some light bulbs here.
Yeah.
It is not unlike even in a city or a municipality.
Yeah.
I know when I used to live in South Minneapolis, about 2 blocks over, there was one home that always had, they knocked themselves out with a light display.
Uh-huh.
And they had it all around the home, things on top, It was a 3-story house. It was pretty phenomenal, and it slowed things down.
Yeah.
But the city came to them, and they asked them to tone things down a little bit.
Right.
The city also asked that they be responsible to have off-duty police officers there to direct traffic so that people can get in and to and from their home. That's what we're talking about here. The association's just saying, hey, we just want to make it a little bit more enjoyable,
right?
Not only for you, but for everybody else as well.
That's right.
So, yeah, to me, if anybody has gone over the top, it's not the association here. I think it might be Mr. Zagouvis. What a great name, though, huh?
Yeah.
Thino Zagouvis. That's a great.
It is unforgettable.
Yes. So anyway, I think in here you're right, Tony. I think we're talking about nothing more than a particular story, last minute, trying to make things sound a little bit more difficult than what was really portrayed here.
Yeah, probably.
Well, hey, we've got to take a break right now. When we come back, we've got so much more, so don't go away. You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony on AM 1280, The Patriot.